I'm Jessica Phillips. I'm Associate Director of Student Experience for Digital Flagship in the Office of Distance Education and E-Learning. And I'm really excited to bring forward today student voices to talk about what it has been like just being a human over the last year, but certainly also a human and a student. And to give you a little idea of how this will work today, I have some questions that our panelists have had a chance to think about, and they'll be sharing their answers today. But I would also invite you, if you have a burning question that you'd really like to share out with our students, then you can feel free to use the Q&A to put that question forward. And I'll try to squeeze in a couple of questions from everybody in the audience today. But also I've invited our student panelists to feel free to chime in the chat and answer questions and engage. So we will be able to keep things, I think, pretty lively there. I will say that certainly there is no way over the next 50 minutes to capture the full complexity of the experience of the last year plus. But what you will hear are very real experiences from these students who are bringing with them very, very unique perspectives. So they're going to be real, and they're going to talk about the things that they did to overcome some of the challenges over the last year, but they are also going to talk about the things that were hard, that were really hard. So with that, that's actually where we're going to start today. So my first question for the panel is actually going to be for everybody, and it's looking back at the last year. What was hard? So I'm going to give our panelists a second to gather their thoughts and share a quote from another student. So Zach says, I think the hardest part was staying focused and holding myself accountable. When I'm alone in my house, there's no one there to challenge my decisions but myself. And I believe that allows for me to think that I'll get to it later, even if I never do. So with that, I'm going to ask Abby to answer this question first. And I want to tell you a little bit about Abby. Abby is a second-year dual degree student pursuing a master's of social work and a master's of public health, specializing in health and aging and health behavior and health promotion. She earned her bachelor's degree in psychology with a minor in family sciences from the University of Kentucky in 2019. Abby's academic interests include mental health, wellness, aging, caregivers of individuals with dementia, and end-of-life care. And she has also served as the Council of Graduate Students Health, Wellness, and Safety Chair in the 2020 to 2021 academic year, which, wow, is quite a year to serve in that role. So Abby, what was hard for you over the last year?
Yeah, so I think for me, the hardest thing was definitely trying to find balance. I think as we moved to an all virtual year, I think it really allowed myself to kind of really heavily book my schedule from, really early in the morning to pretty late at night with few breaks in between. Just because I think we kind of got in this go mode of, do as much as I can, as much as possible. And you're not having those moments to communicate with folks in person as we would have. So there's a lot more that needs to be done over email or over virtual meetings. And so I found myself really experiencing burnout from trying to, or I guess lack of balance. So that was what was most challenging for me.
Thank you, Abby. And I'm going to turn it over to Nala now to give her answer to this question. Nala Walker is a third-year student parent from Canton, Ohio. Yay, Canton, Ohio, who majors in honors social work on a pre-law track. She's a part of the Office of Diversity and Inclusion's Young Scholars Program, Access Collaborative Program, and the Ohio State University's Honors and Scholars Program for Humanities. And additionally, Nala holds leadership positions in several organizations, one being the Undergraduate Black Law Student Association, the Black Student Association, the Young Scholars Program, and the College and High School Aspiring Mothers Partnership for Success Program. Nala, from your very unique experience as a student and a student parent, what was hard over the last year?
I would say it was very difficult not being able to see my family, especially my grandma. She's close to 90 years old, so it was hard not seeing her in person. She doesn't know how to work video chat or anything like that. So although that's the avenue I would usually use to communicate with other family members, it just didn't work out for her. So that kind of led me to find more creative ways to seeing her. So I remember a couple months ago, I went home and I ended up calling her on the phone and talking to her from my car. And as soon as my son heard her voice, he was really excited. So just finding ways to stay in communication with my family, that was difficult. And I would say losing childcare the end of my sophomore year because my son's daycare shut down. So that was very challenging as well.
Thanks, Nala. I got goosebumps as you were talking about your son hearing your grandmother's voice and what that can feel like when you miss them so much. I'm going to turn this over to Getty next. So Getty, he is a third-year student from Columbus Grove, Ohio, pursuing a bachelor's degree in atmospheric science. He originally began his major at the Lima, Ohio campus before transferring to Columbus in the fall of 2020. Getty, that is quite a time to make that transfer. Getty is active on campus, working as both a digital flagship student mentor and an undergraduate assistant at the Byrd Polar and Climate Research Center. Getty, talk to us about what was hard.
Thank you, Jessica. I think the hardest thing for me was literally not being able to be on campus. When COVID hit, I was just finishing up my campus transfer process and thus my time at Ohio State Lima. And while I was still able to take classes through Columbus, everything was moved to an online format, which pretty much negated any reason for me to move from my home. And as a result, it was very difficult to get any sort of campus experience at all, on top of not really being able to see my friends. It was very difficult. And I'm very thankful, to have, good family and stuff at home. And so that was fine. But the feeling of independence and being on a campus and kind of taking control of your own life and living on your own, that experience was totally delayed for a year. And as a result, it was very difficult for me to kind of rationalize that within myself. So I definitely think that was the hardest thing that I experienced through the year.
Yeah, and I know that can be challenging in the best of times. So I can imagine working through all of that during COVID. So next, Grace Balzer. She is currently going into her third year as a psychology major and digital flagship student mentor, and she's interested in health psychology and particularly education and advocacy related to mental health. So Grace, tell us what was hard.
I think the hardest thing over the past year has just been the overwhelming amount of loss that everyone has experienced. I think for a lot of people, there's been this weight of the world's grief that we've all been feeling. And especially in quarantine and when we're home a lot, there's just a lot more time that you're not necessarily as busy. So it starts to feel a lot heavier. And I think that's a big part of the fatigue that we've all experienced throughout the past year and something that's made it all very difficult.
Thanks, Grace. I think you're right. Whether that loss is something that we feel personally or whether we just see the collective loss and the grief that people are experiencing around us, it's a heavy thing to carry. And our fifth panelist today is Hamadou Njai. He is a talented Columbus native third-year civil engineering student and a part of the Office of Diversity and Inclusion's Young Scholars Program. He's a social change ambassador and works on programs like Buckeye Reach and Men of Tomorrow. He's a committed member of the National Honor Society of Black Engineers and the Bell National Resource Center ambassador. Hamadou, what was it like for you? What was hard over the last year?
Thank you. Just the act of civil engagement coupled with volunteer opportunities has been really, really hard. Always offering a helping hand to the community in times where we all need it the most. Various communities may need a shoulder to lean on or somebody to just push them towards the right direction. Because in times of hardship, it's very easy for you just to stand in your own bubble when you need others to help you mitigate through those circumstances. And especially throughout my volunteering experience within college, helping various communities out, such as Buckeye Reach and Men of Tomorrow, just having a role model that those individuals can look up to, that right there has transitioned to being something virtually now. and it becomes challenging because you're always tracking your screen time, what can go ahead and hurt you in the long run sometime. But honestly, very blessed and fortunate to mitigate through the circumstances and volunteer.
Thanks, Hamadou. That's such a great point about the isolation that we can feel and how that can disconnect us from the people who uplift us, like our mentors and the people who just inspire us. So thank you for bringing that forward. And we're going to hear more from you in just a moment here. Our next question, to switch gears, is for Getty and Hamadou. How did technology contribute to your experience over the last year? And while you're gathering your thoughts there, I'm going to share another quote from another student, Ben. Ben said that technology helped me stay connected to my friends and classmates, but especially this year required extra boundary setting to avoid burnout, which is something that's already come up in some of what you shared between schoolwork and trying to stay connected socially. So I'll turn this over first to Getty. Getty, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, for me, technology was basically my lifeline to the Columbus campus. Zoom played a very important role in connecting first with my professors in class and through office hours. And then as I got more comfortable with my peers outside of class and study sessions, we also used a platform called Discord, which is a little bit more customizable. And we use that for study groups a lot. So that was the first thing. And then using additional technology like my digital flagship iPad was helpful in many ways as well. I used apps like Notability to allow me to take more detailed notes versus on paper. And this helped me, especially in my higher level classes where diagrams and charts make up important sections of material. I could easily move these diagrams over from like the class PDF in lecture and move them to my iPad and draw on them and annotate them to my liking. I could do this easily while class was live in the background too. I didn't feel like I had to keep up with somebody lecturing in person. Having it run parallel on my computer and then taking notes on my iPad really helped me keep up and adjust to the virtual format of classes.
Okay, thanks, Getty. Hamadou, Hamadou, what are your thoughts on how technology played a role for you?
Thank you. Navigating through this new so-called Zoom University has been kind of tough, but honestly a fulfilling one as well. Just basic foundations of submitting PDFs has been much more easier. You would just save it to your files and upload it to the Carmen submission box. Being able to reach out for help, such as the MSLC offers tutoring, and going in there, just being able to share your screen and navigate throughout all the information where you're going wrong upon a specific problem and point out the pinpoints of where you're stuck just to receive assistance has been much more easier and more reliable, honestly. And as Getty mentioned, there are so many new features from Notability that we all need to explore, honestly. Being able just to copy and paste a diagram or a chart from one page to another, or just being able to duplicate your information rather than writing it over again, which in terms when you're having an exam or a quiz, just to save upon time rather than rewriting all the information again, it's just a convenient way just to work faster and more efficiently. Thank you.
Thanks, Hamadou. I feel like looking at the last year for myself, the trying to work faster and more efficiently became really important. But that also adds another layer of managing burnout, I think. So thanks for bringing those topics forward. Excuse me. I want to also invite certainly our audience to, if you have questions that you want to bring forward to the students, you can pop them into the Q&A and we'll weave those in. Excuse me. So our next question here is for Nala and Grace. What was it like to try and stay connected to your classmates, your instructor, other students? And while you're thinking about that, I'm going to share another quote from a student here. Victoria says, as RAs, we had to get creative about how to connect since we couldn't have in-person events. And so since students had them, we used iPads to host virtual Netflix parties, Jackbox games, and to virtually connect by video chatting. It was really interesting to me when I read this quote, actually, that I hadn't really thought about the fact that even students who were on campus and living in residence halls still were not able to connect in the ways that they might normally have connected. So Nala, I'll send this over your way first. So what are your thoughts on trying to stay connected? What was it like to do that?
It was definitely different from previous semesters. Majoring in social work, I was already connected to a few of those students who I had classes with this semester. So if I had a question, I typically already had their phone numbers and I could just reach out. And they were very welcoming, very willing to help me out in whatever ways they could. I would say professors, they were able to open themselves up for office hours if I needed help with something, I had a question. We also used GroupMe a lot. So students were just very helpful this semester in knowing that we're all struggling and just trying to take that burden off if they're able to. And I definitely had experiences this semester that were difficult, taking 18 credit hours this semester and raising my son. And I ended up in the hospital for a while, and one of my classmates visited me in the hospital and just came and brought board games and made sure I was okay, and brought her laptop and iPad in case we wanted to work on schoolwork. So I would say students, like Grace was saying earlier, we were really there for each other this semester and just trying to make sure we could get through this pandemic together.
Thanks, Nala. I think you hit on all of the things that we had to try to navigate over the last year. So thanks for bringing that forward, especially working with our own health and managing that on top of everything. So I also want to hear from Grace on this question. Grace?
I definitely think that staying connected with classmates and other students and professors was difficult. I think especially keeping up with other students, because when you're in classes and you're sitting together, you kind of end up chatting and getting to know each other, maybe form study groups. But when you're not actually really meeting anyone, and even on Zoom, a lot of people might have their cameras off and might not really talk much. It's definitely hard to kind of get that first little spark of connection. So you kind of just have to go out on a limb and message people. I know since my last name is at the beginning of the alphabet, I had multiple people message me about starting study groups, I think because I was probably just one of the first people with a picture on the list of students. So that was really nice. I definitely was still able to build connections, but it was more challenging. The one thing that I would say maybe was a little bit easier or just less intimidating was office hours with professors, because going to a professor's office can just feel a little bit intimidating the first time. Even though we know that professors tell us all the time, please come to office hours, it's still just taking that step can be hard. But when you just have to hop on a Zoom call, that can feel a lot less intimidating. So I think in that way, it was a little bit easier, obviously still challenging. And I know I had a lot of really incredible professors who made an effort to reach out first and to make themselves available to us. So that was really, really helpful as well.
Thanks, Grace. And I'm going to pull in a question from our Q&A. And I know a couple of the questions here our panelists are answering by typing, but Melissa Clark asked a great question, I think. And it's about, we know that the last year has been hard. There's been a lot of heavy points there. As instructors, should instructors bring this forward and acknowledge that it's been hard and have discussions about that, bring that into the classroom? Or do students really want the classroom to be a space that they can kind of leave their burdens at the door, whatever that door looks like, and to not have that come into the classroom space? I think that's a really interesting question, and she mentioned, and Melissa mentioned further below as well, that she's afraid that bringing it up in the classroom, it'll be emotional for her and for everyone potentially. And so what are your thoughts on that? And I think I'm gonna bring this to Abby first, and then I'd also be curious, Hamidou, what your thoughts are on that. So Abby, if you want to start.
Yeah, so I was very thrilled because I think this semester I had a lot of professors that were really great at kind of beginning to talk about these things. I think that as a student, I think that it makes you feel like you're being understood, and like I felt very cared for by all my professors who kind of opened that conversation and that dialogue and kind of wanted to check in and see what they could do to help. And I think that it opened the opportunity for some really great connection and kind of figuring out, okay, how can we make the learning opportunities better this semester? So for me personally, I've had a really positive experience with kind of talking a lot about this trauma and this loss and kind of everything that we've been going through. And I think that honestly, as a student, it made me feel more connected to my classmates, to my professor, but also made me want to engage with the material more, because I felt like the learning environment was one that was really fostering genuine, caring and learning for me as a student.
Okay, thanks, Abby. Hamidou, what are your thoughts on that? Should instructors bring this topic forward?
Absolutely. And the reason that being said is the university provides so many abundant resources for us students and faculty members to take advantage of. And I believe that during the time of this pandemic, where majority of us are mitigating through these circumstances, this is the time where we need to take advantage of these wonderful resources, such as the student health center, okay, or student disability services, or student counseling services. All of these resources help you get back on your feet and make our college journey much more smoother and efficient, honestly. So just being able to take advantage of those resources in the fundamental times of needs.
Thanks for bringing that up, Hamidou, because I think you're right. It opens up the conversation to allow then the sharing of resources, what's available at the university. So it's an opportunity to say that the university has a wellness app that has ways that students can get help, or they can be proactive about their wellness, and that all of those features are in the Ohio State app as well. So it opens some of those opportunities for that discussion. So thanks for answering that, and wonderful question, Melissa. Our next question here is for Getty and Hamidou, actually, as well. Again, so what impact have instructors had on your experience? I think this might answer some of the questions that have come up in the Q&A as well. If you have any examples that you could share of specific things that instructors have done that have for you have made a difference, that would be lovely. I'm going to share a quick another quote here from a student who shared what their experience has been like. So Matt said that some of my instructors came up with interesting ways of connecting with us, such as using a Discord server for homework discussion, office hours, and keeping us interested in course material. His Foundations 2 professor, Dr. Painter, in particular, did a fantastic job with this, and it helped him gain an appreciation for what they were learning. So Getty, starting with you there, what are your thoughts on instructor impact?
My instructors had a really positive impact on my experience. The main thing that led to that result was that I found that my instructors were just as anxious about reaching their students and just as eager for interaction as I was. As a result, this made things like going to office hours even more productive than usual, as well as quickly removing any feelings of nerves or feelings of intimidation that you get, even just when things are normal, being on a new campus and meeting new professors for the first time. It can be intimidating, but I never really felt that because they were just as anxious to meet me and interact with me and hear about how I was doing as I was with them. I felt as a result, I was able to make a connection with the majority of my instructors despite never truly meeting them in person, which is kind of weird to think about, but it definitely shows the effectiveness of being vulnerable and not being afraid to, say like, hey, I really want to hear from you guys. And this really helped me not only to connect with my instructors, but to be more confident and comfortable with participating in a fully online class format. My instructors also were really flexible and understanding with sudden issues and conflicts because it was really evident, especially as the year was getting started, that everyone was running on different schedules and was in different situations and were in different mindsets than usual. This is something that's true, of course, in normal times as well, but being completely virtual really brought this kind of to the forefront. And I feel like as a result, altogether, it led to my instructors having a really positive experience on my time.
Thanks, Gaddy. Hamadou, what are your thoughts on that? What did instructors do that made an impact for you?
Honestly, for the majority of the part, increasing the leniency and being more compassionate than usual when it comes just to the circumstances that we're dealing with. At some particular times, your internet may not be running as fast as possible, or worst of all, your Wi-Fi may be going through some troubleshooting errors. And there is a quote that I would like to share with you guys from my freshman year. It was a very challenging year. One of my, he's more than just a professor. He serves as a mentor for me and a great fundamental role model, Dr. Foose. He had taught me a lesson that will always stay with me, in which he said, he shared a quote by John Wooden saying, hey, success is not success overnight. Success is the small victories and accomplishments step by step that would lead to a major jump one day. That's what success is. And there's no doubt in my mind that the faculty members are trying their very best to mitigate through those circumstances and abide by our rules and regulations as well to go ahead and be successful in this pandemic crisis.
Thanks, Hamadou. I love that. I love that quote. And I feel like if there's ever a year to focus on those small victories that bring you forward, this is a year to look at that and to feel that success. I do want to bring another question from our Q&A forward, which I think it's a great one. Nala, I think I might put this one your way, but if anybody else feels really strongly that they'd like to answer this one, I'll open it up to another panelist as well. The question is about staff and maybe also advisors. How have staff at the university made an impact on you, or advisors, or what could staff or advisors do that might help or has helped, however you want to look at it, looking backward or looking forward, what difference can be made there? Nala, do you feel like you would be okay to chime in on that one? Great. Go ahead whenever you're ready, Nala. Oh, you're muted. We can't hear you. There you go.
Okay, it was frozen. Sorry. I agree with Hamadou that we definitely need more compassion during these times for internet issues, for mental health issues. And I would say, going back to students in my cohort, there were many students who would reach out if they noticed I wasn't in class, just checking up on me, seeing how I was doing. In this semester, I've had one semester who has done that as well. Just reaching out because I think my internet went out and I had to leave class early. So she followed up with me, and I think professors doing that and just kind of noticing that students are going through a lot of things right now. As soon as the pandemic started, students had to go back home and they were forced to perform at the same level before the pandemic started, and it's just not possible because you have students who went back home and their circumstances just are not the same as they were in their dorms, and being at home again, they're faced with internet issues, they're faced with food insecurity, and just all those problems that I think professors, faculty, staff should take into consideration.
Thanks, Nala. I'll just leave it open for just a second here for our other panelists. It looks like Abby, you have something you'd want to share about this, particularly maybe thinking about non-instructors, staff, and advisors would be great.
Yeah, absolutely. In terms of the advisor front, my advisor reached out pretty frequently, just even after big world events happened, just to kind of check in and see if I needed to meet. That was incredibly helpful. And also, I was employed through the university. I did contact tracing through Ohio State this academic year, and all of the staff that I interacted with there were phenomenal. I think there was a real team that was formed, even though it was completely virtual. And I think just, again, as Nala mentioned, having that compassion, I think that's something that I've seen from every staff member, advisor, anyone that I've worked with, especially over this past year, and kind of that sense of we're all in this together. That's been something that's been really helpful.
Thanks, Abby. I'm going to move to our next question here, which is, what was it like to try and strike a school, work, life, technology, dog barking in the background balance over the last year? And this question is for Abby and for Nala. While they're gathering their thoughts, I'm going to share another quote from a student. This is from Fakumi. Fakumi says, it was a consistent effort that sometimes required that I be patient and compassionate with myself and ask for grace from professors. So I think we might have lost Nala for a moment. So I'll turn it over to Abby first here.
Yeah, thank you so much. So as I kind of mentioned, answering the first question, I personally feel as though I was not finding balance at all at the beginning. I found myself not sleeping enough. I was constantly on my laptop, I think because we have everything connected from the laptop and the phone. I constantly felt like I couldn't put it down. I couldn't take a break. I also live alone while I'm at school as well. So I found it hard that I didn't really have someone to hold me accountable or to maybe push me to stop doing school for a second, to stop doing work for a second. And kind of through this, I'm someone who I like to be busy. I'm typically pretty go. But I really found that my mental health was starting to struggle. My physical health was something I wasn't prioritizing. And so I kind of felt myself not feeling like myself anymore because I wasn't really prioritizing those things that were important to me. So a way that I did kind of find balance is I forced myself to choose a few things that I loved and that were important to me. And I challenged myself to begin incorporating those things into my everyday life. So I really enjoy cooking. So I challenged myself to, okay, cook a dinner every night. Just cook a good dinner every night. Take that time for you. Also working out, finding time to, this looks very different. You're not going to a gym necessarily throughout this pandemic. Like, go take a walk outside and enjoy nature, getting outdoors, doing yoga in my apartment, something like this. And I think just actually in my calendar, scheduling me time, like scheduling, okay, when am I going to set aside this time for me? And I was someone who always told myself that I couldn't do it. I didn't have the time. But once I really forced myself to take the time for me, I saw how much it made a difference in my productivity and just my overall attitude towards everything after that. And so that's something that was helpful to me, just really being intentional with, okay, what am I going to spend my time doing and when am I going to schedule that in? And that was very helpful.
Thanks, Abby. And Nala, I know we lost you for just a second, but we wanted to find out your thoughts on how you balanced work, life, school, being a parent, all of that over the last year.
I would say it was tough at first getting over mom guilt and me taking so many credit hours and not having time with my son and constantly working on my laptop, typing a paper or reading a book for an assignment, it was extremely hard. So I kind of had to draw boundaries and say, my son is in school from 8 to 5, and I really need to get my work done during that time so that when he comes home, I'm able to spend quality time with him. And of course, he's in his CoComelon stage now. So I'm trying really hard to just hide devices. And that's made it that much easier to spend quality time because he's not focused on trying to watch CoComelon and YouTube, and I'm not focused on trying to do my assignments. So I would say that has helped me balance it all and helped me foster a greater connection with my child as well.
Thanks, Nala. I'm going to bring in another question from that's popped up in a couple different places here. Over the last year, instructors have tried different things to help engage their students, trying new technology, perhaps, maybe using things like Flipgrid or engaging assignments or discussions, just to help students engage in an online format. For you, what has worked about that? What were some things that instructors did that you really liked? And maybe what were some things that were harder for you to navigate as a student when it comes to those things that instructors were trying? I think I'm going to see if Grace, if you have any thoughts on this one, and then I'll leave it to the panel to kind of think about it for a second and let me know if someone else wants to chime in on this one. Grace, does that work for you?
Yeah, I can talk about this one. I think that a lot of my professors did a really good job of kind of rearranging things to fit better for online learning. One of my professors pretty much completely remade his course so that it would be more conducive to being online. So it was more like writing and discussing in class and readings. We used a specific online platform called Perusall for our readings. So we would all be able to comment on them and like have back and forth conversations about what our like thoughts were on the reading, which was really helpful. And so in that way, I think the professors were really awesome about like creating more opportunities for connection and kind of different like grading opportunities too, because I know academic integrity has been like a difficult thing since everything's online. So it's very hard to like ensure that. But yeah, I think that it's been difficult, but most of my professors have done a really good job of creating opportunities for us to do different types of assignments that are a little bit more interesting that we might not do as much in the classroom. Excuse me.
Thanks, Grace. Getty, what are your thoughts?
I agree. I think if you can mix in some new tools or maybe some new learning methods to an otherwise traditional classroom experience, I think you should definitely do so. I had a professor who actually broke our class up into different like chunks. So like one part of the semester we learned material, another part of the semester we reviewed literature, and then a third part of the semester we kind of culminated with a project. So I thought that was a lot more engaging than just kind of steamrolling through material. I also like the idea of adding new tools like Discord because it adds not only more methods of student engagement, but it also allows students to kind of customize spaces they're in while still falling within a general framework of, okay, you're in this class, there's certain things that we do in a classroom, there's certain things we don't do. So I think both of those methods are good ways of kind of enriching an otherwise bizarre classroom experience online, like sudden online learning. Both can help.
Thanks, Getty. This was a popular question amongst our panelists, so Hamidou wants to chime in on this one as well.
Absolutely. I agree with all of you guys, honestly. I think this year, the method of cognitive learning has been beyond measure, honestly. I can recall back to my freshman year sitting in Dr. Fuss's Chemistry 1210 course, he had something called pre-lectures. So you will do the pre-lectures, read the assignment so your brain could get the flow of the information. Then after that, you come to the lecture and you'll understand it at a deeper and much better scale. So just having the willpower, the integrity, and dedication to take it upon yourself to do that each and every day before a lecture has been more than fulfilling, because it had allowed you to look at the information and navigate through the information. So when you come to lecture, you already have it in the back of your head. It's more so about just reiterating the pinpoints that you have missed and haven't really grasped 100%. And there's also this app called Explain Everything. And along with that app, we used it a lot during recitation. You would go ahead and solve a problem step by step. And throughout solving the problem, you're recording your steps as well. And you could also have a voice recording on there as well to explain every single fundamental step. That way, individuals can understand and comprehend at a deeper scale as well. So, thank you.
Thanks, Hamidou. That's a great point about explain everything. And really, any time you're recording yourself working through a problem, you can demonstrate how you got to the answer. And sometimes that's where the space where an instructor can come in and help. If you're encountering an error as you work toward a solution. So thanks for bringing that up. I'm going to jump to our next question here, which is for Abby or Grace. And this might relate a little bit to what you've all been talking about recently here in the discussion, but what is one strategy you've adopted or experience you've had over the last year that you'll take away for the future? And I have a quote to share here from Liz. Liz says that she's stopped working, studying, checking email past 8:30 p.m. I hope post-grad I can hold this boundary so I stay away from my computer before bed. Liz, I wish you the very best of luck in that endeavor, and tell me if you find a strategy that works for that. So for this question, what's one strategy you've adopted or experience you've had? Let's start with Abby. And then we'll hear from Grace.
Yeah, thank you. I think actually someone mentioned this phrase earlier, but this is what I had written down for my answer to this one. The strategy that I plan to continue utilizing and that I really learned this year was learning to give myself grace, really learning to recognize that, things happen, life happens, and that's okay. I think as a student, as a graduate student, that's something that we often forget. And so I think really kind of reminding myself, we're in a pandemic and it's okay if I'm not as on top of things as I normally would be. And so I think just remembering to allow myself grace and to allow myself to not be perfect all the time is something that I will continue to take moving forward.
Grace?
I completely agree with that. I think that it's really easy to look back at the past year and feel like, oh, I should have done more with my time. I could have been productive. I had all this time at home. Why didn't I make more of it? But really, I think a lot of us needed to rest, and it's okay if there were things that got left behind a little bit and if we weren't as productive. So I think allowing ourselves grace is a really important thing. And I also saw someone or heard someone talking about setting more boundaries for ourselves, especially with technology and connections to other people to avoid burnout. Like what Liz was saying about trying to be off the computer past 9:30 p.m. I think that's definitely something that we've had to prioritize this year, because it is really easy for people to kind of take advantage of everything is so connected all the time, so you should be responding to these emails late at night, but it's okay for us to set those boundaries and decide no, I need this time for myself. And so I hope that's something that I can take into the future too.
I really love that focus on your wellness, because if you're not well, if you don't have food, if you don't have the things that you need to be healthy in your life and healthy with the people around you, it's really hard to then figure out how to be successful in class and get your reading done and do your quizzes. Those things really have to be centered. So thanks for sharing that. we're approaching our final question, and it's a doozy. So I'm going to read it out loud to our panelists, but I'm going to tweak it a little bit based on some of the questions that have come through the Q&A. But we're going to shift to looking forward. We're going to shift to looking, where do we go from here? So how do you think our experiences during the pandemic can help to shape the future of the Ohio State student experience? What should we do as we go forward collectively as a university? And I'll add to that, what shouldn't we do? What didn't work? What should we stop doing? What should we never try to do again? That as we go forward. So for this, we're going to hear from everybody, but I am going to share a quote as our panelists consider their response from another one of our amazing students. So Kenneth says, instead of reverting back to normal, we should continue development and innovation to increase accessibility, equity, and creativity so we better serve the communities inside and outside of the universities. And I think that's a great point of, we have an opportunity right now to not go back to what we were doing before and to look at new ways. So I'm going to start with Hamidou, and I'd love, Hamidou, to hear your thoughts on, well, how can this help shape the future experience that students have?
At Ohio State, there's approximately 66,444 students of different race, gender, religion, and color. And all of us were working tremendously hard to mitigate through the circumstances. And I believe that during this pandemic crisis, a few things that we should continue to do is include those pre-recorded lectures and keep recording those lectures for students that missed it in the long run as well, and students that cannot make it to class honestly. Although this may be a slight topic because some students may take advantage of not going to lecture honestly, whereas others are sincerely want to look past those lectures over and over again, which I think is really beneficial. And one thing that I would suggest the university to do is improve our Citrix system or our remote desktop. Most of the time when I am using these softwares, I would experience crashes or glitches or just like late tracking of whatever I'm doing connects to the server and connects to other servers to deliver a fast service throughout the board. So I think that right there could be a major improvement, honestly.
Thanks, Hamidou. Grace, what should we do going forward?
I think that over the past year, the pandemic has really uncovered and also put a spotlight on areas that we were falling short, especially within equity and accessibility in education. And so I think going forward, we need to make sure that we continue, like Kenneth said in his quote, to do better at those things so that we can better serve our communities both in and out of the university. Because I think that it could be really easy as things kind of go back to normal, so to speak, for us to just let those things fall to the side. But I think we do have an incredible opportunity right now to make really lasting change so that education can be more equitable and accessible for everyone. And I think that's really important going forward.
Thank you, Grace. Getty, what are your thoughts?
I guess kind of building on Grace and Hamidou's points, I think continuing to be more flexible and understanding of everyone's different situations will go a long way in moving the Ohio State experience forward. This past year, more than ever, it was evident that everyone was in different spaces, physically, mentally, emotionally, and dealing with different things all across the board. And having a larger understanding of this from the top of the administration on down to something as basic as like the professor-student relationship will go a long way in helping to improve the student experience, for years to come. I guess an example of this, and I saw this mentioned in the chat and in the Q&A a couple of times, like somebody mentioned the concept of mandatory office hours. Well, that on paper, that's a great idea. You want to make sure that your students are coming to see you and you're connecting with them regularly. But if you're not flexible and understanding of everyone's different situations of, does somebody have a job at this hour? Is somebody in a class at this hour? And not willing to be flexible and saying, instead of coming at these set times, schedule an appointment with me whenever, I will try to be here for you as much as I can. And I want to hear from you. I think elevates that concept to something where everyone can get behind it and everyone can kind of engage with each other. And it serves as a good example of continuing to be more flexible and understanding of different situations.
Thanks, Getty. I do have to say that as an instructor, I learned so much more about in the class that I teach, so much more about the students that I interacted with when I would be on a Zoom call with them and I would see their kids in the background or their dog in the background. And it did give me, it gave me so much more insight into the experiences that our students have. They've just been kind of behind the veil before, and this has certainly brought some things forward. Thank you. Nala, what do you think we should take away?
I agree with everything that's been mentioned. I greatly appreciate the financial assistance we've received from, Ohio State, the IRS. But moving forward, I would really like to see more mental and emotional support for students. I remember receiving a survey from the Lantern where they surveyed students about their mental health, and just seeing that the amount of burnout, depression, anxiety has greatly increased because of the pandemic. I just think moving forward that Ohio State should prioritize that. And as far as not giving us a spring break and not really being lenient with assignments and our workload, because again, we were still expected to perform under the same capabilities. It was just extremely hard. So moving forward, I just want to reiterate, I hope that Ohio State will be more understanding and compassionate for students.
Thanks, Nala. And Abby, you're going to bring us to a close here with your response.
Yeah, I again echo everything that's been said. I think that we've really learned a lot this past year, specifically knowing that technology can be incredibly helpful, but also knowing when it can be too much and when it's important to take a step back and kind of encourage that boundary making and time for yourself. I think as we go forward, it's going to be really important to address issues of isolation and burnout, because we've seen that a lot this year. And I think that as we kind of transition to whatever this new world looks like, that won't go away immediately. And so I think an important thing to think about is how can we foster an environment of positive learning and connection among our students as we're kind of moving back to whatever comes next from this.
Thanks, Abby. So with that, I just want to extend a huge thank you to the students who are here today and just for being so honest and real and authentic and vulnerable and also for taking time during finals to engage in this and to prepare for this so that your voices could be heard. And I hope that our audience feels that they've taken something away from what you've shared today. I know I certainly have, and I know that I've had a couple moments of choking back some tears. So I just really appreciate the honesty that you brought forward. So thank you so much. I hope that this is the first of many, many, many more conversations with students about the experience and what we can do going forward. So with that, our programming for Innovate today will begin again at 1 p.m. So you have a break to be able to do some self-care, get some lunch, drink some water, do all the things that you need to do to be engaged and ready to take the afternoon on forward at 1 p.m. Thank you so much to everyone, and thanks to our audience and all the wonderful questions that you brought up. Thank you.